called Her Body, Her Choice, and it's really easy. This is Jenny Irvin, who's going to play her very cool cajon, and yes, let's hear it for Jenny. And if you can't sing or sing out of tune, that's great, that's wonderful. Please sing. If you really don't want to sing, just yell, because we need to be heard. This is a really important issue. We're in a lot of trouble with this Supreme Court, and the most important thing to do is have our voices heard in Chicago, across the country. So let's really sing it out loud. And the lyrics are: her body, her choice, her decision, her voice. And we'll do that a couple times. There's a couple other little sections. We will fight for reproductive rights, and women's rights are human rights. All right, so we'll do it one time through and then join in. All right, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Her body, her choice, her decision, her voice. 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 Now we will fight for reproductive rights, We will fight for reproductive rights, Back to the chorus. Her body, her choice, her decision, her voice. Her body, her choice, her decision, her voice. And women's rights are human rights, Women's rights are human rights, Back to the chorus. Her body, her choice, yeah, her decision, her voice, her body, her choice, her decision, her gender exclusive, their body, their choice, their decision, their voice, their body, their choice, their decision. One more time. Her body, her choice, her decision, her voice, yeah, her body, her choice, her decision, her voice. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Her body, her choice. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Linda Lowe, L-O-E-W, an activist and founding member of Chicago for Abortion Rights. I was also active in the fight to legalize the right to choose abortion before the historic Roe v. Wade decision. That is not a world we want to go back to, nor ahead to a world even darker by a growing right-wing assault on all of our rights. On our behalf and our many co-sponsors, we welcome you to the streets of a community that knows well what it means to fight for rights, for gender justice, against police abuse and brutality, and for racial and economic justice. We are here because we are facing down an unacceptable threat to cut off the rights of millions of women and also transgender and gender nonconforming people to exercise control over all of our bodies and lives. We're here because that historic 1973 Roe decision has been the law of the land for nearly 50 years and is now hanging by a thread. We're here because upwards of 80% of Americans agree with us and support keeping abortion safe and legal. And we need to see those millions filling the streets of our cities and towns and Washington, D.C. before the court rules. Roe is technically still the law of overturned, and we must defend that it be upheld. We are here because many of us see that neither of the two parties in power has been able to save us. We cannot rely on them. We have to mount massive pressure to demand our rights. We are here because history has taught us that when we rely on our own power, we can bring great change. We are wearing green because we are in solidarity with and inspired by hundreds of thousands of abortion rights protesters in Colombia and throughout Latin America who have taken to the streets and won decriminalization in some of the most conservative countries in the world. A few days ago, one of their leaders of the Causa Justa, a coalition of abortion rights groups, was quoted in the New York Times saying, "As the U.S. faces growing restrictions on abortion, feminist activists in Latin America are increasingly relying on one another for legal strategy, organizing tactics, inspiration, pointing out that their counterparts to the north might have something to learn from them." That's
right,
us.
That's right.
It's now an inspiration going from south to north. We are going to inspire people in the United States to defend the rights set out in Roe v. Wade. That was from Colombia. Green has been the color of their signs, banners, bandanas across the continent. Millions of people in this country will have their lives upended and many more will die if Roe is overturned. By June or sooner, the U.S. Supreme Court will hand down its ruling on Dobbs versus the Jackson Women's Health Organization, which is the last remaining abortion clinic in Mississippi. If the court upholds Mississippi's 15-week abortion ban and overturns Roe, which is what Mississippi and the entire well-funded, well-organized right wing is pushing for, nearly half the states in this country are poised to ban abortion. We have a preview in Texas, with its blatantly unconstitutional 6-week ban now in effect for over 6 months, and its vigilante bounty scheme that incentivizes individuals to sue abortion providers and others. This is the same Texas where Governor Abbott has issued directives for the Department of Family and Protective Services to investigate when parents of transgender children pursue legal medical services for their child. One such investigation was temporarily halted by the state court this week, but others continue. This is outrageous and unacceptable. Also this past week, the Florida legislature passed a similar bill as Mississippi's abortion ban, just awaiting that governor's signature. This is the same Florida where legislation is also on the verge of passing that would ban instruction about sexual orientation or gender identity in some school grades. Bills like these and all attempts to legislate away our basic human rights should make us all uncomfortable. The same right wing that is mobilizing against our right to control our bodies is attacking the right to vote, of labor to organize, of gender nonconforming, of the right to have safe schools and workplaces, what is taught and not taught in those schools, and access to full reproductive health, which is an essential human right, and it should be delivered in the richest country in the world.
Yes! Yes!
Every right worth living for, fighting for, and even dying for has been won by people like us collectively organizing and mobilizing from civil rights, labor rights, LGBTQ rights, voting rights, and even forcing the U.S. government to remove its occupying forces from wars that bring death and destruction and massive cuts to desperately needed social services at home. It was in a time of rising struggles to demand our civil, racial, and women's rights that Roe v. Wade was won in the first place.
Yes!
And we know that Roe was never enough. Millions of poor, especially Black, Indigenous, and people of color, especially in the American South, uninsured, underinsured, young people are denied access. Some never had access. Opponents of abortion and full reproductive rights have been chipping away at Roe since the day it was handed down. Then the Hyde Amendment cut off Medicaid funding for abortions. Maternity deaths for Black, Indigenous, and people of color are up to 5 times higher than for any other groups. And there is no safe haven. The valiant efforts of abortion funds everywhere will continue to try to meet every need, but the numbers of people who can scrape together the funds and time to travel to states like Illinois is rising dramatically from Texas and other states, and will continue. And millions more are facing their lives being upended and even dying, and we say no to that. Now is the time to get back into the streets and stay in the streets and join with others whose rights are under attack.
Yes!
We cannot allow a few individuals in robes sitting in their high, remote, and protected chambers to tell us what we need or what our rights should be.
Yes!
We must fight them as we always have. If we don't fight, we can't win. If we do fight, we can win. The feminists in Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, across Latin America have shown us what is possible. So have those in Ireland and even in Poland, where the massive battle continues. We are called to action. We must find a way to bring everyone who agrees with us, those upwards of 80%, to join us in the streets, to demand and win our rights. No Mississippi ban, no Texas ban, no Florida ban, no ban anywhere.
Yes!
Not now,
Yes!
not ever. Extend full access to abortion and all reproductive care to everyone who needs it.
Yes!
We want access to abortion
Say it!
on demand and without apology.
Say it!
Thank you. I'm going to do one chant and introduce our first speaker. When abortion rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
Our first speaker, and we have 3, is Ashabi Owagbori Aye, an organizer with Pride Without Prejudice, the group that organized the past 2 years' inclusive Pride Month marches as an alternative to the corporate-dominated Pride Parade. Ashabi.
Whoa! Woo! Yes!
How's everyone doing?
Yeah!
Amazing, amazing. So, we're in front of Sutter and Halstead, and most people who are from Chicago assume Chicago to be a very liberal, open, accepting city. Am I right?
Yeah.
I think what's very clear to a lot of us is, despite the fact that we live in a very, very liberal city, there is constant battle with not only our mayor, but the people that the mayor puts in power, just to get our own rights and our own voices heard, and it's absolutely despicable. We're in the city of Chicago right now protesting for abortion rights because it's safe. A lot of us have access to these resources that we need, not only for women's bodies, but for all of our bodies. But unfortunately, we live in a country where that isn't true for a majority of people. Like it was mentioned, Texas is undergoing really strict laws against women's bodies and are coming to other places to find sanctuary and to find resources that they need so they can be safe. Despite the fact that we are in a liberal city, we still need to fight for the rights for others so that they can have access to what they need so they can continue getting safe reproductive health that they deserve. And despite the fact that we are in Chicago, we're not safe.
That's right.
Absolutely not. We live in a bubble. And 2020 showed us how easily we can pop that fucking bubble and have destruction and mayhem across the city just because we're fighting for our rights.
Got it. That's right.
Right now, Roe v. Wade is being at risk to be overturned. And when that happens, I'm saying when, because the U.S. government has time and time again shown that they do not care about us as people. They care about politicians, they care about money, they care about lining their pockets, they do not care about us. So when it happens, we have to make sure that we are all together as community, protecting each other, not just in spaces like these, with our neighbors, with our co-workers, with our family, with our friends. We have to continue educating each other so that we don't end up in a worse situation than we were before.
Yes, say it. Yes, yes, say it.
With us being in front of Center Northalsted, which is a very inclusive space for all queer people to come to for resources, we need to understand that women's bodies aren't the only bodies that are at risk right now. All queer, gender nonconforming, trans, non-binary people are at risk for getting the reproductive health resources taken away from them.
Yes.
And we need to continue fighting
Yes.
for not only women's bodies, but for all of our bodies, because
Yes.
we are all at risk.
Yes! Yes!
As we continue marching and having conversations like these, we need to keep in mind how to be inclusive to everybody so that they know that they aren't being left behind in this fight. Black and brown people are consistently undergoing harm because of the color of our skin. And we deserve these rights even more so because we're the ones who essentially gave you all these rights. So keep that in mind as we march today, keep that in mind after we march today, keep that in mind for the rest of your life. You have to make sure that our bodies are consistently protected. Black and brown bodies, black and brown queer bodies, black and brown trans bodies, we need the utmost protection as we are going through this.
Yes!
I know we keep hearing women's rights. I want to keep hearing our rights because all of us are at risk right now.
Hey, say it!
So as we go on today, please, please, please walk with intention. Walk with a lot of love in your hearts and understand that this fight does not stop here. It will never stop here until we all are able to get the reproductive health rights that we need.
Thank you!
Thank you so much. Racist, sexist, anti-gay, right-wing bigots, go away. Racist, sexist, anti-gay, right-wing bigots, go away. Before our next speaker, I just want to give a shout out of appreciation to all of our co-sponsors. It's on all of the material and Facebook pages that built this, and you can see who they are. It's a long list, so check out their literature, their websites, and their social media. There's also clipboards that have gone around. If you haven't gotten a signed one yet, to get more information about our upcoming activities, please find one and also get one of these. It's a chant sheet. It'll be useful on the march, but it also has an upcoming event that we're having at a gallery in Pilsen on the south side of Chicago, Yuri Eichen Gallery, next Friday, March 11th, weather permitting. I wish it could be like today. There'll be an outdoor opening from 6 to 8, and it'll be a variety of posters of protests and in solidarity with allies. Chicago for Abortion Rights meets the global struggle is the theme of this exhibit. Our next speaker is Danica Katovich. She is a national organizer with the feminist anti-war organization Code Pink and is a recent graduate of DePaul University. She's part of their alumni.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Danica. I'm a part of a women's-founded peace organization that was started in response to the United States invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan. Imperialism and patriarchy are ideologies and practices rooted in control. They're unsustainable, harmful, and targeted. Peace activists recognize that the peace starts within our own communities. It starts in our interpersonal relationships and the ways we stand up for justice for ourselves and for each other, because peace cannot be achieved without justice. A just world would be one where any person who needs an abortion can get one, not only safely and easily, but for free.
Yes. Right. Yes.
For free and wherever they find themselves in this country.
Yes.
We're a country that puts almost $800 billion into our military.
That ain't right.
Into funding U.S. violence abroad. We are a country that preaches austerity for the people, but not for the Pentagon. Let's talk about what we deserve. We deserve safety as people who can get pregnant. We deserve access to free health care, not affordable health care.
Yes.
And in that framework, abortion is health care.
Healthcare is a right.
On top of that, poor people who can get pregnant shouldn't have to worry about whether they can afford prenatal care. Reproductive rights is about so much more than abortion. And we have to fight tooth and nail to protect our rights here in Illinois, but all over the country where abortion is under attack. We know what's best for ourselves, not members of Congress, not the Supreme Court, and absolutely not insurance companies. Attacks on abortion rights are attacks in all of our movements. Let's continue to be in solidarity with one another. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Danica. Abortion is health care. Health care is a right. Abortion is health care. Health care is a right. Abortion is health care. Health care is a right. Before I introduce our final speaker before we march, I want to point out that there are maybe a dozen or so marshals who are participants in our march and are also going to help assure that we have a very successful march, getting our message across. And so please follow their guidance as we head out, and I'll explain that when it's time to do that again. Our next speaker is Andy Thayer. He's a longtime LGBTQ and anti-war activist, a Chicago for Abortion Rights organizer as well, and co-founder of the Gay Liberation Network.
Hey!
If you're a cis gay man who's concerned about your rights, but doesn't care about what happens to abortion rights, then I'd argue you're not only short-sighted, you're probably a fool. Because if and when the Supreme Court trashes the right to legal abortion this spring, your rights are next in the crosshairs. The religious right will take that win against women and gender non-conforming people to pile on against even more people's rights.
Say it! Yes!
And as Linda was outlining just a few minutes ago, we've already seen that in real time. In Florida, early last month, the House passed a measure dubbed the Don't Say Gay bill, banning discussion of LGBTQ people and allowing parents to sue school districts who allegedly violate that ban.
Ooh! Ooh!
And feeling their oats from that vote last month, just 2 nights ago, the same Florida House passed a bill which, as Linda mentioned, mimics Mississippi's anti-abortion bill that's currently up before the Supreme Court. One outrage has piled onto another. And so long as we are not together in solidarity, the other side will pick us off one by one by one by one.
Yes!
But it needn't be this way. I haven't given up on Roe v. Wade. I know it's an uphill battle, but we should not give up on Roe v. Wade. We do not surrender. Roe v. Wade was won by a very different kind of movement than we see today. When it was legalized in 1973, following the inspiration of Stonewall, LGBTQ people were not just concerned about our own narrow rights. We were concerned and active in the streets, defending the Black Panthers against racist police attacks. And the Black Panthers were not narrowly concerned about racism narrowly defined, but were also organizing against the U.S. war against the Vietnamese people. And again, they were not narrowly talking about racism. They were talking about class with their breakfast programs and their health programs, things that we still, as our last speaker mentioned, so desperately need today. And women of all races organizing in the civil rights movement used those experiences to relaunch a more radical women's movement that forced a conservative Supreme Court to concede legal abortion in 1973. The movements were not separate. In many ways, they were one. Yes! And that's something we need to learn from. Finally, if there's one thing we can learn from the drip, drip, drip erosion of access to abortion and reproductive rights over the 49 years since Roe v. Wade, it's this. The politicians, especially the Democratic Party, who have promised to defend Roe v. Wade, have failed us. Yes! I repeat that. The politicians have failed us. Yes! Yes! The courts, for all their somber language about, quote-unquote, no undue burden for those seeking abortions, have failed us. This spring, a group of unelected, mostly political hacks gussied up in black robes will presume to have the unilateral privilege to decide what your rights are. Boo! Boo! We can't sit back and hope that they will see the light and save us. After 49 years, we can't hope that the politicians who say they support us will suddenly develop spines. Yeah. There's a reason why there are no politicians speaking here today. There's a reason why the main event is not people like me standing in front of a microphone, but the march that you all are about to participate in. There's a reason why that's the main event. It's because people just like you were the ones who won abortion rights and so many other rights in the past. It was not the politicians, it was not the courts, it was not people standing in front of a damn microphone.
Yeah, it was us! It was us!
So, you are participating in a march today. This is not a parade. You are participating, like the Pride Without Prejudice marches for LGBTQ rights and against racism. You are participating, but you need to do much more than this. You need to see yourselves as organizers, people who talk to your friends, people who talk to your neighbors, people who talk to your coworkers, your fellow students, because that's how movements were built. And we need to build them in a way that, as I said, is intersectional, is about solidarity. It's not just my rights. It's about everyone's rights, because if one of us goes down, we all are threatened with going down. So there's a few very important things you can do to make that happen, to get involved. We're a very small group here in Chicago for abortion rights, bringing in a bunch of different groups and individuals. We need to be stronger. Those clipboards, I see one right there. Please sign up so we can be in touch with you about future events. Not just the event next Friday that Linda was talking about. We're also talking about trying to get together with other cities around the country to have a national day of protest for abortion rights, for reproductive rights, for all our rights. We can't wait for the politicians or the big NGOs to do it for us. We need to do it ourselves. If the people lead, the leaders will follow. Okay? So let's get out into the streets here, sign up on those clipboards, let's be in touch about future events, and hopefully we'll have many, much, much, much bigger marches in the future, because that's what it's going to take to defend our rights. The politicians, courts won't do it. It's up to each of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, please bear with the people at the platform here while they unpack so that we can get signs distributed and get ourselves formed in lined up to begin the march. At that time, we will come out and instruct you. We'll be going south on Northalsted, and we will have marshals wearing the purple armbands to guide you and tell you when we're ready to begin and to help line everybody up. Meanwhile, thank you all for coming. Let's have one more chant. When abortion rights are under attack, what do we do? When transgender rights are under attack, what do we do? When queer rights are under attack, what do we do?